Whoa! God, move to ya! Today we'll be talking about the Desert Tech Wolverine, specifically the Micron that we have right here, which is the short-barreled rifle. But as you know, we're not big fans of the ATF, so okay. But in any case, we have a very interesting rifle. So previously I have reviewed the MDR and the MDR to a lesser extent. This is now a continuation of that rifle series, and I would say a fairly good upgrade of what we're seeing from what we saw previously, which in my opinion had quite a few problems. So we're going to be delving into the Desert Tech Wolverine. At this point, we have over 2,000 rounds on it, and I think we have a pretty good handle on how it is performing. So in a world of AR-15s and AKs, how does a novel new design with quite a few years of maturation, at this point it's had several years to mature and become a better platform? Let's go ahead and let's get into it. So first thing we're gonna do is full disclosure. What is my relation with Desert Tech? So obviously we have received a rifle from them in the past. We have the MDRs and the MDRs that we have received. We are now receiving the Wolverine Micron, which we have done a review on at this point, which is occurring right now. And they are sending an HTI as well, which we will be reviewing. There is no exchange of money, ammunition, or anything beyond the rifle. This is very standard for us. We've been harsh on the MDR and MDRX. We're always going to stick to our guns because we understand that for you guys, you know what? The economy sucks right now. I remember being a poor college student, being a poor enlisted man in the military, and you know what? I would scrimp, save, and just do a crazy amount of research prior to buying something. So hopefully we can help you come to a good decision so that you don't waste your hard-earned V-Bucks. Before we do that though, we of course have to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel, who is Primary Arms. Big thank you to them. It is Laffy Taffy made. Go in there and say, I love Laffy Taffy, hashtag Grantham, see what happens. It might be good, it might be bad, you might be banned for life. But you know what, we're here to see it. They're amazing. Go and just give them a lot of love. And of course, if you are looking to be more American, Henry Repeating Arms, just, you know, it's hard to be more American than a lever action rifle or a lever action shotgun or a revolver. So just love them for who they are and what they represent. And of course, if you want to get better at shooting, we recommend dry fire. Mantis will turn your weapon into a dry fire machine. It is so good that all of my Mantis systems have been stolen from me. And of course, all ammunition is provided for by AAC. We've been firing 77 grain Sierra Match King, which is our go-to. Finally, don't forget the Patreon for tons of clips of me being an idiot. The Desert Tech Wolverine, more specifically, this is the 11.5 inch barreled variant instead of the 16. And it is quite compact. There's a lot to say about this, but for now, what are we doing today right now, John? Drills. It's the best way to do it. So you might have a question. Why should you listen to me and John? Why should they listen to us, John?
We shoot guns a lot.
We shoot guns. We have great military careers. I was Air Force Special Warfare. John, you were in the Army, and what'd you do?
John was a Ranger.
Okay, we're getting John over here like, oh, what did I do?
No idea.
Look at the facts. Right. You're being so silly, John. Okay, first things first, gonna be bill drill, 6 rounds at 7 yards and under, we'll say under 1.3.
It's gonna be difficult with a bullpup. The trigger's not as good.
Oh yeah,
but
of course.
Stand by. 133. Nice over.
Oh, I'll base. Yeah, that was clean. Felt good. I was a little delayed, I feel, in my response. What was my first shot? First shot, was that 0.66? Oh, that's slow. Okay, give me one more. Give me one more. You get 2 as well, John.
Stand by. 105. Woo! You really sped it up. You have 1 Charlie, but
oh,
that was your very first ones.
Well, you know what? Like they say, nothing's free in water world.
0.30 was your first round.
You know what? C-zone's still good. Hit in the shoulder, he's still going down. All right, John's up. Now, my favorite part about this is that John has to go after me after I've been shooting like 1,000 rounds on the ranch. So that's life though, right, John?
Yeah, let me do like a couple just. All right.
You got it. Shoot, are you ready? Stand by.
Yep.
Nice, 1.18. Better than me on my first try. Stand by. You know what? 130. John's is built different.
Built special, for sure.
You know, I think it's me with Legos, or both of us. Autism's a hell of a drug. Okay, now, one thing that we want to point out is how compact this rifle is. So being a bullpup design, there are a lot of advantages to it. Mostly the fact that because the majority of the receiver mechanism is behind the trigger, this allows you to really suck back everything into the gun itself. Now, traditionally, there have been some problems with it. There's usually a bad trigger. Usually magazine reloads can be a little wonky and stuff. I feel like they did solve a lot of that with this. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and let's do some apples to oranges comparisons. Let's place a couple traditional guns next to this so you can see the difference in size. All right, first thing that we're going to put down is going to be your standard, just URGI. This is 11.5. This is a fighting rifle of USACOM, and it is a great rifle. But as you can see, being in a traditional, even collapsed variant, you still have quite a bit of barrel length. In fact, with a suppressor attached to this, you still have the URGI as longer, despite having the same barrel length. Next up, we compare it to an MCX. So we have our Virtus MCX right here. This is with stock at the shortest position. There's only 2 positions on that stock, but as you can see, still significantly longer. With a suppressor, we're still shorter with our Desert Tech Wolverine right here. And finally, kind of a more interesting comparison, this is John's MP5 right here. And you can see that even an MP5 is still larger than the Desert Tech. Now, a couple issues that you run into with bullpups is you do have the action right here that tends to be louder than more traditional guns where the action's more up front. You do have that detonation of the round closer to your jaw. So I do find them to be a little bit more loud as far as from the shooter's perspective. And then traditionally you had a bad trigger. Now I do believe that the Desert Tech Wolverine definitely solved that. You could see how fast we were on this gun. John, do you have anything to add when it comes to bullpups?
I mean, like you said, the triggers are usually terrible, but this one is, I don't think it's aftermarket at all. It's
not. That's from the factory.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
It feels pretty good.
I wouldn't call it like, Geisley level, of course, but it's very impressive.
And I should note that, I've done reviews on the Desert Tech MDRs previously in the MDRX, and I did have some significant problems with that. We aren't running into those issues. In fact, the Wolverine does have less parts. It is simplified compared to the MDR. And so far, I would say we have quite the winner right here.
So another thing, we compared the lengths of these 2 rifles. Obviously, this was a little bit longer, but pretty much everyone across the board, your stock is going to be about that far out. So I'd say that's more of a fair comparison. You're going to see how much that affects us here in a second.
Yep. And that's not like us cheating the system. That is the typical length that John has his at. Mine's 1 position in, but despite that, it's still more length than what you'd see completely collapsed. I don't know anybody who runs a gun completely collapsed anymore.
Silly geese.
All right, John, on you, buddy.
So yeah, I had to get like a decent ways away from the barricade, especially if I had a can on it. You really don't want to be, bumping into it, but I can be even closer to it, especially if I'm moving down like a tight hallway. That's where that bullpup really
100%. And if John were to have to enter into a doorway or anything like that, where there's a possibility of having to dip that gun rather than dip in it, most people are going to do what's called short stocking it. They're going to bring that stock above or below their shoulder as they enter. So there are ways to fight around it. It's not like, oh my God, the bullpup's the only way. Just understand that in many ways it's probably going to be simpler. Now, John's going to show that same drill and some ways that he doesn't have to short stock when using the Wolverine. I'll go ahead and I'll put this mag back in my handy dandy Onward Researcher Soldiers placard. This can hold, 5.56. We also have the heavy version if you need more retention. It's a good product, and it just so happens to be made by us.
So as you can see, I can get really close to this wall if I have to. There's a lot of residential hallways are very, very skinny. Something to think about.
It's much easier, and then as you can see, in addition to that, if John were to have to enter a hallway, there's less short stocking that needs to be done. It's more time on the gun with the gun just slightly depressed versus having to bring that gun up and off the shoulder.
So the charging handle is good, but just note, kind of like the SCAR, if you have big lugs, you can rack your knuckles on it.
One thing to note too, guys, obviously we do have a charging handle here. It does the typical bolt lock back and everything, but if you need to actuate it, having any type of mount that's a little bit further out, you have to be kind of aware of the issues that can create as far as racking your knuckles on that. I've kind of trained around it, but if you're not used to it, you're going to hit it. Now, we've done quite a bit of shooting at this point. We're going to do one more drill showing transitions, which it is nicer with a short gun. Let's go and take a look at that.
Shoot ready.
Yep. Stand by. 152. Hi. shitty on that one. But overall, pretty easy on the transition. John, you're up next. Shooter, come send the course fire. Yep. Stand by.
Damn, BD both, look.
1.5s. Okay, a lot of practical shooting. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at what it's like as far as its practical accuracy. Okay, we're going to be shooting out to 550, so we do have a 4150 CMV barrel. This is the same barrel used in military M4s and 16s. In addition to that, we have a 1-in-7 tris barrel. We are shooting 77 grain Sierra Match Kings, which are optimized for longer range shooting. It's our go-to. So we'll go ahead and we'll start and see if we can get these impacts pretty well. All right, John, you spotting for me?
Yep.
Okay. Fairly easy at 300 and it's 80 right there. Let's step it up to 550. Let's see what we're doing. Okay. Well, there was no cut in the camera there, guys. So that was just straight first round impact and then one miss and then impact again. So pretty simple, even with 11.5 barrel. Understand that 11.5 barrels are kind of me and John's go-tos because they really are great combat rifles out to about 500 plus. So easily demonstratable here. John, you want to give it a go?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
I'm so good. I'm so good. I'm done now. No, you can't do the Seinfeld.
First round impact.
I know.
I got to leave on a win.
I just did like 4 in a row.
No.
I think like 3 in a row. All right. You can't fib here. Just under.
Cool.
Elevate.
Easy.
So one thing I want to show is suppressor usage. So obviously there's a lot of gas settings, but what we found is with low back pressure cans, there really isn't much of a need to adjust it, although you can for like maximal performance. What I found when you have it adjusted correctly, add the suppressor, you just get a little bit of that combat gassing. So right here we have a low pressure can. This is, or a low back pressure can. This is the B&T Print XSC. It mounts to a normal Surefire device. This is a Surefire A2 we have on here. Let's go ahead and load it up. This is our normal setting that we have just for the rifle. As you can see. Just no problem at all. So runs very well with the can. And that's something you want to see with a lot of these newer rifles. So I like that it's easily adjustable, that it runs well with the suppressor. This is what I'm looking for. Let's continue. Now you train hard, you train often. However, you need a reliable source of ammo. Where do you get that? Well, you know what? Today's video is brought to you by Ammo Squared. We have a lot of great things to say. Let's talk about them. Ammo Squared is your ultimate ammunition solution. They are America's ammo reserve, which is what they want. They have over 70 different calibers to choose from, multiple different options within those calibers as far as type, weight, everything you could possibly want. Now, all of your ammo is stored in a climate control facility and you can choose when to ship it. You can buy piecemeal as you need. There are no minimums. And for orders that cost over $225, that shipping is free. So join tons of other tactical shooters just like us and get in with Ammo Squared. We of course love them because you know what? We love fellow Idahoans. That being said, Idaho is full up and full right, Sawyer. So don't even bother coming here. But the point is, go check out Ammo Squared. We love them, and it is a great option if you are looking to purchase a little at a time on a budget. Go check out Ammo Squared. So we've now done our combat accuracy tests on the Desert Tech, and one thing that I have to say is it's very consistently accurate and reliable. So these are all good indicators. Everything that we've seen so far had indicated this gun not just to be reliable and good at close quarters, which being a, compact bullpup it's made for, but in addition, it's good at the longer shots. It definitely competes with other combat grade weapons. So far, I've been very happy with the accuracy of the weapon. Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it's 11.5 barrel piston driven, but it's with the 77 grainers. I mean, it's still consistent impacts, not the, what is it, 550?
550.
I mean, I like it. I like it more than I thought I would. It's not bad. There's a few things like kind of like the those of you that have shot SCAR rifles before, that this charging handle, it's not bad. I don't hate it. It's just if you use an optic mount that has big lugs on it, then you might rack your knuckles on it. Also the gas system. So it is fully adjustable. I just wish it was a little more easy to adjust in the field.
I feel you.
Especially, and I don't blame it for this because it's so compact. If you have a bunch of stuff mounted up front, it's kind of hard to get in there to the actual gas system to adjust it.
I would say that's my retarded ass. That's probably my problem on the setup, because old habits die hard. But on the left side, you can still adjust it. But I do see what John is saying. I can't think of a better way, because it has a pretty good open window. Like if I'm playing devil's advocate, I would say the window on the side is pretty large, and it does have the bullet tips to be able to, to be able to crank it over to position. So I'm not as critical on it, but I do understand that being a very compact rifle, it's hard to kind of fit everything into the package comfortably and ergonomically.
Yeah, there's always going to be a trade-off.
There's always going to be a trade-off on it. So we've done quite a bit of shooting at this point. I think we've proven kind of the reliability, the versatility of the rifle. Let's get into some of our artistic breakdowns. Let's talk about manual of arms. Let's talk about shooting. Let's talk about everything as we break this down into autistic detail. So there have been a lot of changes to the Wolverine. Now, more so than I specifically want to go into at this point, because at that point we're kind of comparing it versus the MDR, and that's not really my point. I want to review this as a standalone system from a shooter's perspective. We have a lot of rounds on this and a lot of different scenarios. Suffice to say, they've updated the barrel clamping technology so that you have better repeatability, better accuracy compared to older MDR rifles, and that seems to absolutely stand up. Beyond that, there's a massive reduction of parts. There's a lot of streamlining to the bolt carrier and the bolt system, as well as to the recoil system. Now, the Desert Tech Wolverine is a short stroke piston-operated weapon, and it is firing from a detachable box magazine, your typical Stenag mags. And in the case of the Wolverine Micron, which we have right here, it is 11.5 inch barrel. And you can see how tiny this package is. First time you're going to be, excited to tell people about your tiny package. But let's get into this. We're going to start from the muzzle end and we're going to go down. So on the Desert Tech Wolverine, you have your standard 1/2 by 28 threads. This allows you to mount any type of 223 muzzle device. Now, what's really cool about the Wolverine, or the MDRs in general, is the fact that they can be very easily changed to different calibers. There's not a whole lot to it. So whether that be 308, 300 black, 223, 65 Creedmoor, it can do it all with a simple conversion kit using the same serialized item. So that is one of the coolest things about the Wolverine. And there's not a whole lot of guns that do that and actually deliver on it. Desert Tech does. Now, in this case, we are reviewing a 5.56 variant. At the front here, we have removed the stock muzzle device. We wanted to be able to mount a suppressor of our choosing. In this case, we wanted to mount a Surefire type muzzle device. So we do have a Surefire A2. I'm a big fan of the A2, not specifically because it's the best, but I like the length and I like how it works well with suppressors. Now, moving back to the barrel, there's been a lot of questions about the specific type of barrel technology that they are using. They are using a 4150 CMV. This is a typical barrel steel that you see in a lot of different military rifles. In the case of the Wolverine here, you can see while we're shooting out to 500, the accuracy really was not at all a problem. This is what we want to see from a combat rifle, which is good accuracy on man-sized targets. Now, everything that I've seen from the MDR, this typically will print at about between 1 to 1.5 MOA on a good day. And that is plenty. It's not going to be as accurate as your typical AR-15 because those have free flow barrels, DI gas systems, which will lend themselves to being more accurate. But for a combat rifle, this has everything you could possibly need. I have no issues with the accuracy of this particular rifle, of this series of rifles. From everything that we've seen, they are good to go. Moving into the gas system, there are a lot of interesting quirks to it, so let's get into it. Now, on the gas system, it is adjustable, and I do believe it to be fairly easy to do. So we're going to be looking at the position is going to be on the right-hand side. In the case of how I have mine set up right now, it's a little bit harder to access. I would say having the light folded down was probably the best option. This wasn't the best configuration, but I kind of did a set it and forget it because I was using a lot of flow-through cans on this guy, specifically the B&T XC, the Print XC, which we saw earlier in the video. So it wasn't as much of a big deal. Now, it can be rotated with a bullet tip, and all you're going to do is watch that right-hand side. You have a minus, which is your lowest setting, all the way to A for adverse. You have 6 positions in between with a normal at the midpoint. It's fairly easy to do. All you're going to do is put a mag in with 1 round, see if it locks back. If it locks back, well, boom, you have a weapon that is perfectly functioning for what you need. So let's see what our gas setting is at and if we are looking good. You be firing 1 round? All right, do a test on our gas system right here. All right, and as you can see, locked back. So our gas setting is perfect. So all we typically do is we set it to the lowest position. We fire with a round in the magazine. If it doesn't lock back, keep turning up until you have it locked back. That is typically the lowest gas setting that you want to be at. Some people will go one pass at to make sure it's combat gas, but that is how you test for the gas setting. Which also brings us to a very interesting point, which is reloads. Reloads on the Wolverine, just like on the MDR, are very, very easy. Your bolt release is right here. Your magazine release is right up here. So when you're doing a reload, it's very easy. You simply do them in the pocket of your shoulder. You can simply insert that mag and your thumb's right there. Boom. Now you are loaded. It is a very, very simple process to do. I love the simple ergonomics of the Wolverine. Getting a little ahead of ourselves, but it lends itself to the conversation. Now, the gas system on our rifle, at times we had the gas setting too low. Sometimes we wouldn't lock back. That's a user error. That's something that can be easily corrected for. And once we had it gassed properly, we had no problems with the gun locking back. Now, on the Wolverine, I did have a few issues with some double feeds. I would at first attribute these to magazine, but we did have it occur a few times. There seems to be a break-in of about 500 rounds on the Wolverine. After that, we haven't really seen malfunctions, but I should note it was a bit of a rough break-in procedure. So, compared to a lot of guns that really didn't have any issues kind of right off the bat, I will kind of count this against the Wolverine as a bit concerning. However, I will say the last 2,000 rounds past that have been absolutely flawless. So it's a bit tough with our smaller sample size, but I will say that I am, for the most part, happy with the reliability that we've seen from the Wolverine. Now, moving back into there, let's talk a little bit about the controls. They are fairly interesting on the Wolverine. So to start off with, you are ambidextrous, and that is important to note because a lot of people will recognize that on the earlier prototypes of the Wolverine, the MDR, that's a terrible thing to say, but you did have a forward eject system, which did cause a lot of problems. They did away with that on this, and they solved some issues by making this completely reversible. It can eject right, it can eject left. It's fairly easy to change. It's not something that you do on the fly like you can with the Bred ARX, but I don't think that's a really big deal. It's a little bit more involved in rotating the bolt head and swapping the ejection port covers, but it's fairly easy to do. If you're left-handed/wrong-handed like me, it's very easy to do. Now, right here, we have our magazine release. It is a bit sticky in my opinion. It's not the simplest magazine release, but there is another magazine release, and that is right here. So whether you're using your finger up here like on an AR-15, or whether you're reaching back and releasing it off the back end right here, both work. You do have redundancies and backups. I understand why it's a little bit tougher compared to your typical AR-15 because it is a linkage system that is going back and releasing it, so it's not the smoothest release up front here. Now on our safety, I do wish there were slightly longer levers right here from the factory. I find these to be a little bit short. So when I'm up on the gun, you can see right here, I am there, but I'm kind of right on the edge. So that is something where I'd want those just a little bit longer to make it slightly more ergonomic. Now, the trigger is absolutely phenomenal on the MDRX. Now, Bullpups have long suffered from pretty long, terrible triggers. And the reason for this is because all of the action of the weapon is so far back, the trigger linkage has to get all the way back there, which means you just have a terrible pull. So I'm going to get a little bit closer to the camera right here. I'm going to show you the trigger pull on the Wolverine to show you just how good it is. All right, so pull it into the trigger right here. It's light. So you don't really have much play. It's just a straight wall. And off that wall, you have about a 4.5 pound trigger. It feels very good. So the best triggers, in my opinion, on a Bullpup has been the Geisley trigger for the Tavor. That being said, this gets close. It's not quite as crisp, but I will give it to them. That is a very good factory trigger. So I have a lot of good things to say about that trigger. Off the reset, as soon as you release off that, it's maybe 2 millimeters forward. That is nice. And can you hear how smooth that action is? That does feel so nice. I will say, and John pointed this out too, out of the box, I would say this is the best Bullpup trigger currently on the market. And I don't say that lightly, it's just quite nice. So controls, quite good, ambidextrous. You have your magazine release, you have your bolt release right here. Everything feels good. There's been a massive reduction in parts, and it is a lighter rifle. Now, despite all that, the thing that we do have to point out is recoil. The gun is soft recoiling. It is 5.56. It can be gas with a brake, of course. You could have even lighter recoil. But if we compare it to, say, a Geisley Super Duty, a Geisley URGI, a well-gas AR-15, those are far lighter in recoil. And there's a couple factors that come into play. AR-15s have more weight forward. That means that they're going to be able to keep the muzzle down easier. On the MDR, you're very back heavy as a bullpup, right? You have most of the action back here. So because of that, you have less weight out front, which is good. It just means that you're going to have a little bit more muzzle jump compared to an AR-15. Now, of course, you have a far more compact system. There's always going to be a trade-off somewhere. But after you shot the Wolverine for like a full day or two, and then you shoot like a Super Duty Suppressor, you're like, oh my God, this is so much smoother. And that's not to crap on the Wolverine and say it's a bad rifle, rather to say that when you go so small and compact on a bullpup, or you go into a bullpup, it's just not a free lunch. It's not like you just get the best of every world, super light recoil along with a very compact weapon. There's always going to be something coming to play. And that's also when we talk about length of pull. It's not adjustable. What you have is what you got. So it's either going to fit you or it's not going to fit you, and there's no in between. Now, on the charging handle right here, no problems. It can be locked back to the rear. So if you need to lock it back to, clear a malfunction or something, it's much like an HK where there's a little notch back here and you can push it up, and then you can release it by just hitting it back down on it. Back to here, we have your cheek rest. No issues there. And then, of course, we have QD slots right here at the rear. It is a little bit crowded up here on the handguard. So as far as where you want to put your sling mount, it's probably going to be right here, but you don't have a lot of purchase area on the Micron. It is so small. So because of that, you might run into issues as far as where you're going to grip the gun. So if I had to put it somewhere, probably about right there, and then it's going to work. It's just you don't have a whole lot of real estate to work with. That's my fault for going as short as I did on this particular bullpup. But I do love how compact it is, especially for vehicle work or very, crowded, think like teeny little apartment complexes, something like that. This could be a really good rifle. So where does that kind of lead us to? I think that the Wolverine is a very good bullpup compared to the MDR, which I had a lot of issues with. I haven't had those issues with the Wolverine. I would definitely rank it up there with among the best bullpups that are currently on the market. So this compares very favorably to the Tavor. I know some of you aren't a big fan of the Tavor for various reasons, but the Wolverine is a very good alternative. And in addition to that, it's also made by Jews, just Mountain Jews. It's okay. I used to be a Mountain Jew, so that makes it okay. I'm Mormon. Just if we're not being, if you never heard that term, Mountain Jews for Mormons.
Yeah, no,
it was an insult when somebody said it to me, but I think it was so funny it just kind of stuck. This is a definite buy for me. I think that it's just like a use case scenario thing. It is harder to get, replacement parts compared to AR-15, and that sucks to say because the AR-15 is so ubiquitous at this point. But if you have something where you're going to be working in very close quarters, working out of vehicles a lot, I think there's a lot of good things to say about the Desert Tech Wolverine. Now, before we kind of move on and kind of finish this up, let's go over a little bit of my setup. So because we have so little rail space here, and more specifically, I didn't want to mount anything that required a 0 off the handguard right here. I mounted anything that required a 0 off the optic rail. So obviously starting from our left-hand side right here, we have a pressure pad wrapping around front to our Surefire light. The one thing I would change about this is I would lower the light just a little bit, just for clearance on this charging handle, just so it doesn't interfere. And then at the top here, we have a B.E. Myers maul. I love the maul. It's very well suited to short rifles, so where you don't have a whole lot of rail space, because it sits off to the side, it's very easy to actuate the controls, and it works perfectly on the Desert Tech. So we have that. At the rear here, we have an Aimpoint Comp M4S, which is literally bomb-proof. It is mounted to a Geisley mount, and that is just a very nice looking, very simple, very robust build. So guys, get out there. If you're so worried because you don't have the money for a Wolverine, I understand. If you don't want to switch from an AR-15, it doesn't matter. Or if you have a Wolverine and you're concerned about other things, just go shoot your gun. This is a perfectly acceptable combat rifle from everything that I've seen, and just train with it. That's what's really going to matter, whether you have this or your basic AR-15, just like we showed in the PSA video. These are all different flavors that are all going to fit different use case scenarios. Don't get too wrapped up in, do I have the best of the best, and wrap more into, am I the best of the best? That's what's going to matter most. Now, guys, thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you. Final thing will be dad advice. My dad advice is something that I think works, which is No matter what, don't let your video game character be a higher rank than you in real life. Am I in the same club as you now that I bench 315?
Sure.
Get away.
That's gay, John. Nuh-uh.
No,
Wearing
no.
socks.
Nuh-uh. That's like the best comeback ever.
Which one am I going for? The 500?
Yeah. What you thinking about, John?
All right. Serious time.
Okay, spotting.